The House will come to order. All those present in the chamber, please remain standing until the colors are posted.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Face. Ready, step. Ready, post. Ready, face. Ready, step.
We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance led by the students from the Fairmont Elementary in Denver, which is in my district. Guys ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Please join me in thanking Captain Matthew James Yates, Sergeant First Class Edward Frank Trigano, Sergeant First Class Thomas Robert Greco, and Sergeant First Class Jeffrey Wayne Gibson, members of the Colorado Army National Guard, 5th Battalion, 19th Special Forces Group Airborne, who posted the colors this morning. Please also join me in thanking the amazing young students from the Fairmont Elementary School for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And at this time, on the behalf of the entire House, I want to thank Hazel Miller for honoring us with your presence and your amazing voice this morning. It's truly grateful to have you in the chamber today. Members and guests, you can be seated. We have some opening day business to conduct. If there's no objection, Marilyn Edens will be appointed the temporary chief clerk. Do I see any objection? Just waiting. Come on. Someone? Seeing no objection, Marilyn Edens will be the temporary and permanent and never allowed to retire chief clerk of the House of Representatives. The Chief Clerk has received the resignation letter from Representative Claire Levy, House District 13, and the communication from the Secretary of State conveying appointment of Representative Casey Becker to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Representative Levy. If there is no objection, the documents will not be read at length, as they will be printed in full in the Journal. Representative Casey Becker was elected by the House District 13 Vacancy Committee to fill the seat vacated by Representative Levy, and was given the oath of office by Chief Justice Michael L. Bender in the House Chamber on November 4th, 2013. Representative Becker has been added to the roll call of the House. Mr. Kohler, good morning.
Good morning.
Please call the roll.
Representatives Becker. Buck. Buckner. Conti. Coram. Court. Del Grosso. Dorr. Duran. Everett. Is excused.
Excused.
Exum. Fields. Fisher. Foote. Garcia. Gardner. Giroux is excused. Janal. Hamner. Holbert. Hollinghorst. Humphrey. Joshi. Kagan. Kraft-Tharp. Labuda. Landgraf. Lawrence. Lebsock. Lee. May. McCann. McLaughlin. McNulty. Melton. Mitch Bush. Moreno. Murray. Navarro. Nordberg. Pabon. Peniston. Pedersen.
Excused.
Primavera. Priola. Rankin. Rosenthal. Ryden. Same. Salazar. Schaefer. Scott. Singer. Sonnenberg. Stevens. Swam. Zabo. Tyler. Vigil. Waller. Williams. Representative Giroux is present. Wilson. Wright. Young. Speaker Ferrandino.
Here. With 63 members present, 2 excused, the quorum is present. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that a committee of 3 be appointed to notify the Senate that the House is organized and ready for business.
Seeing no objection to the motion, Representative Fisher, Chairman, Representative Labuda, and sane members will notify the Senate that the House is organized and ready for business. Majority Leader Hollinghorst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that a committee of 3 be appointed to notify the governor that the House is organized and ready for business.
Seeing no objection to the motion, Representative Kraft-Tharp, Chairman, Representative Hamner, and Gardner members will notify the governor that the House is organized and ready for business. Before we relieve the committees to do some notifying, I'd like Representative Hamner and maybe the Capitol Choir to come down for a second. And Representative Pedersen is present.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And before we go notify the governor that we are very well organized here this morning, I'd like to say I'm delighted to be back. It's exciting to be here today. And as the Capitol Choir makes their way down, I have a couple announcements. One, some of you might wonder, how do you get to become part of the Capitol Choir?
Not really.
Really, all you have to do is come on down and say, I'm part of the Capitol Choir. And as you know, for some reason, I was assigned to be in charge of our birthdays. And wouldn't you know, we already have our birthday in the House as we start the new year and the new session. And coincidentally, that birthday is being celebrated. It was actually a few days ago. But our newest member of the Joint Budget Committee, Janice May, celebrated the first birthday of the new year. So with our, is this it? Is this the best we can do with our Capitol Choir? Okay. If you'd like to be part of the Capitol Choir, here is your chance. See? All right, here we go.
Yes.
Okay, and so please join us in wishing Representative May, she loves it when we do this, a very happy birthday. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Representative May. Happy birthday to you. Thank you.
Well done, Capitol Choir. At this time, the committee to notify the Senate and the governor will be excused to proceed to the Senate. Hopefully they're ready as well, and the office of the governor. The House will be in recess as we wait for the House committees to return. Members and guests, can we please return to our desk? The committee, after taking its time, has sent us a few senators to come over. So Senators Kerr, Todd, and Balmer, all former representatives, we're glad to have you back in our illustrious and better chamber. Please come to the well and notify us that maybe the Senate might be ready. We'll see. Senator Kerr or Senator Todd.
Thank you. Well, it's good to kind of be back home a little bit here. So I am pleased to welcome everyone, guests as well as elected officials, to the beginning of another new session. And wish you all well, wish you a healthy year, a year of blessings for you and your family. We once were here, but now we're gone. The clock is ticking and the Senate calls us. We're ready to go and do the people's work, so gear up. The Senate is ready with a new president.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it is so nice to be back here with so many smiling, friendly faces. Just wanted to let you know the Senate is up and ready to go. Representative Court is, of course, holding a baby, as always, so some things never change. I have noticed a few differences from when we last were here, and well, we'll just keep it at that. We'll keep it that there are a few. But I very much welcome all of you to come and visit the Senate when appropriate. And I hope all of you get the chance to come over and serve there one day. Thank you.
Representative I'm sorry, I gave you promotion. Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's so great to be back in the House. All of you look so great. You know, Mr. Speaker, a lot of people make a lot of noise about the differences between Democrats and Republicans, but our political party affiliations are insignificant compared to the important demarcations among us. And I'm, of course, speaking, Mr. Speaker, about whether or not you are a dog lover or a cat lover. And I'm speaking to a room full of politicians, so I would expect you to say that you're both. But I would hope that you would take a principled stand and actually say one or the other. And it is great to see you, and I say to everybody, be as good as your dog.
Thank you, Senators. We appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you this legislative session. The House will come back to order. Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, it took a while for the Senate to recognize us, and we apologize for the delay. I think it just goes to show that the Senate doesn't recognize greatness when it's standing right outside the door. So, Mr. Speaker, it is with great honor that I report back to to the House that we fulfilled our duty, and it was indeed an honor for me in my last year in the legislature to go and notify the Senate that we are indeed organized and ready for business.
Representative Labuda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I, too, waited outside. We thought maybe they were getting ready for a game of golf or something, but they had lots of entertainment, a lot more than we had, so I know that they play a lot more than we do. But be that as it may, we informed them that we were organized before they were. We're ready for business. And as with Representative Fisher said, this, too, is my last term. And probably due to my husband's request, I'll no longer be active in politics after this term, but I'm going to have fun doing it. Look forward to working with all of you.
Representative Sane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was indeed a pleasure and an honor to notify the Senate that we were open for business. It was also a pleasure to see they were all awake. As we well know, this is often the time for their midday nap. But it is always a pleasure to wait upon the lower chamber. So with that, we're looking forward to a very productive session. Thank you.
Thank you, committee, for letting us know how the lower body is doing. We are still waiting for the committee to come back from notifying our esteemed governor that we are ready, but while we are waiting for them, let me take a moment to acknowledge and welcome some of our guests with us today. We have former Speaker of the House, Ruben Valdez, with us. My mayor, and I'm a little biased, but the best mayor in the entire country, Denver Mayor Michael Hancock. I know I saw her around here somewhere, but former state treasurer and our deputy Denver Mayor, Kerry Kennedy. There's And it would not be an opening week in the legislature if we weren't honored to have former mayor, former representative Wellington Webb, and former representative Wilma Webb with us. And one other guest we do have with us who was with us here last year all year, someone who doesn't really need an introduction to all the members here, who served 7 years in our chamber, has been a powerful advocate for a wide range of issues, including criminal justice and environmental policy, former Speaker Pro Tem Claire Levy. The House will stand in a brief recess as we wait for the committee to notify the governor. Members, the House will come back to order. I did notice one other dignitary with us today, former Representative Roger Wilson, who is in the back of the room. Please join me in welcoming him. Representative Kraft Tharp. Let's hear what the governor had to say to us. Representative Kraft Tharp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, good to see you again. Welcome back.
Great to see you as well.
Thank you, members. I'm pleased to tell you that after waiting a considerable amount of time for the Senate, which hopefully is not an indication of this year, we were able to meet with the governor and report to the governor that we are ready to get started. We are ready to work. The governor was able to share with us some little pieces of information about encouraging us to work together, remembering that this is... Good morning, Minority Leader Del Grosso. Reminding us that this is football week, and that talked a little bit about football and the importance of small business in our community.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was honored to be part of the team alerting the governor that the House is indeed ready for business. And I'm not sure if the Peyton Manning example was an analogy with our Speaker's leadership, but at any rate, the governor did say that he missed us, that it's been kind of quiet around the Capitol without us, and that he is willing to step in and help when needed, when times get tough and we're having a hard time reaching some agreements and finding consensus, that his office will be there ready to help us do that. And he really did share his commitment to our work and the fact that he'd really like to see us working very well together. I'm looking forward to that.
Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and a privilege to serve with you. Members, and particularly members of my caucus, I asked the governor if he had any special message for the House Republican caucus, and he did indeed expressed a hope and a challenge to us to work collaboratively for the good of Colorado, and particularly for Colorado's small business this year. We immediately searched for areas of agreement, and were able to find that there was broad agreement on our support of the Broncos and Peyton Manning. And with that good start, we think that we can move forward. The governor told us a story that he said we shouldn't tell, but we're going to tell it anyway, that when he was young and playing football, that he was told to look short and go long. Was that right, Madam Chair?
The governor asked us not to.
I know, but you know, those things are public meetings.
Don't get me into this, Representative Gardner.
Those things are public meetings. So look short and go long, and perhaps that is good advice for us in this session. And with that, after the Senate did finally arrive, by the way, we were able to complete our meeting and get down to work. So that concludes our report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. Thank you.
The House and Senate are now ready to begin our service to the state of Colorado. Introduction of resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 1001. House Joint Resolution 1001 by Representative Hollingworth, also Senator Heath, concerning a joint session of the House of Representatives and the Senate for the purpose of hearing a message from His Excellency Governor Jock Nickelmooper and appointing a committee to escort the governor.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the rules be suspended and that HJR 14-1001 be given immediate consideration.
Seeing no objection, the rules are suspended for immediate consideration of HJR 1001. If there is no objection, we'll proceed with a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. HJR 14-1001 is passed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that HJR 14-1001 be adopted. This is the resolution that sets the date and time of a joint session for the governor's State of the State address.
So we just voted to suspend the rules, just to make sure. Sorry, I'm getting a little rusty. It's been 8 months. Seeing, is there any objection? Okay, sorry. The motion is the adoption of HJR 14-1001. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted. Pursuant to the resolution, Representatives Buckner, Vigil, and Murray will serve as the committee to escort the governor for the State of the State address. There are a number of changes in membership to committees. Mr. Kohler, please read the complete list of appointments to committees.
The Committee on Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resources. Representative Fisher, Chair. Vigil, Vice Chair. Becker, Buck, Corum, Garcia, Lebsock, McLaughlin, Mitch Bush, Rankin, Sane, Scott, Sonnenberg. The Committee on Appropriations. Representatives Duran, Chair. May, Vice Chair. Dorr, Gardner, Giroux, Hamner, Labuda, Pabon, Rankin, Singer, Sonnenberg, Tyler, Young. The Committee on Business, Labor, Economic, and Workforce Development. Representatives Williams, Chair. Kraftharp, Vice Chair. Exum, Hamner, Holbert, Navarro, Nordberg, Rosenthal, Ryden, Zabo, Wright. The Committee on Education, Representatives Hamner, Chair, Peniston, Vice Chair. Buckner, Court, Everett, Fields, Holbert, McNulty, Murray, Pedersen, Priola, Wilson, Young. The Committee on Finance, Representatives Court, Chair, Labuda, Vice Chair, Becker, Del Grosso, Foote, Joshi, Kagan, Melton, Pabon, Priola, Sane, Swam, and Wilson. The Committee on Health, Insurance, and Environment, Representatives McCann, Chair, Schaefer, Vice Chair, Fields, Janal, Humphrey, Joshi, Landgraf, McNulty, Primavera, Singer, Swam. The Committee on Judiciary, Representatives Kagan, Chair, Lee, Vice Chair, Buckner, Court, Gardner, Lawrence, McLaughlin, Murray, Pedersen, Salazar, Waller. The Committee on Local Government, Representatives Fields, Chair, Singer, Vice Chair, Dorr, Exum, Garcia, Gardner, Landgraf, Lebsock, Navarro, Rankin, Rosenthal, Vigil, Wright. The Committee on Public Health Care and Human Services, Representatives Primavera, Chair, Young, Vice Chair, Conti, Everett, Janal, Joshi, Landgraf, McCann, Schaefer, Singer, Stevens, Tyler, Wilson. The Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, Representatives Ryden, Chair, Salazar, Vice Chair, Conti, Dorr, Foote, Humphrey, Labuda, Melton, Moreno, Nordberg, and Williams. The Committee on Transportation and Energy, Representatives Tyler, Chair, Moreno, Vice Chair, Buck, Corum, Everett, Fisher, Janal, Kraftharp, Lawrence, Lee, Mitch Bush, Peniston, and Scott. The Executive Committee of Legislative Council, Representatives Ferrandino, Del Grosso, and Hollinghorst. Joint Budget Committee, Representatives Duran, Chair, Giroux, and May. Legislative Audit Committee, Representatives Nordberg, Primavera, Ryden, and Sonnenberg. Legislative Council Committee, Representatives Ferrandino, Court, Del Grosso, Hollinghorst, Melton, Murray, Pabon, Priola, and Zabo.
Pursuant to 2-3-101 of Colorado Revised Statutes, the appointments to the Legislative Audit Committee require a recorded vote. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote.
All the members voted. Representatives Court and Zabo.
Okay, I really can't find Representative Court. She's carrying my daughter. But Zabo, on the other hand,
Where is the fine jar? I'll just put it on a disc.
Yeah, we don't have it up here yet, do
Representative Zabo, you have the honor of being the first fined member of the year. That will be $2. Very well played. Close the machine. With 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, the appointments to the Legislative Audit Committee have been confirmed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the appointments to Legislative Council Committee be confirmed.
Pursuant to 2-3-301 of Colorado Revised Statute, the appointments to the Legislative Council Committee require a recorded vote. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Labuda. Vote. Close the machine with 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent. The appointments to the Legislative Council Committee have been confirmed. There is no confirmation needed for the Committee on Legal Service since there has been no change in the House members in that committee, no changes since last year. The House will stand in one brief recess. The House will come back to order. Members, good morning and welcome to the second session of the 69th Colorado General Assembly. This will be my last legislative session, and once again I thank the members for giving me the great honor of leading this chamber. Let me start by welcoming our newest member, the Honorable Casey Becker, representing Clear Creek, Gilpin, Grand, and Jackson counties and part of Boulder County. Welcome. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge Representative Brian Del Grosso on his election as Minority Leader. I congratulate you on your new and challenging post and look forward to working with you in a productive session. I think the last 3 minority leaders only served 1 year. I'm hoping you'll be serving that for many more years to come. And with your new baby on the way, I'm looking forward to discussing sleep deprivation, father to father. I also want to welcome the other 62 representatives who are returning for the second session. I'm glad to see every one of you. We've been through a lot together, but we've maintained the decorum and civility that is key ingredients to our proceedings. I know you will continue to treat one another and this institution with the utmost respect. I also want to recognize the members who, like me, are term limited, are entering their final session in the House of Representatives. Representative Randy Fisher, our advocate and expert on water issues and an able chairman of the Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resources Committee. Representative Bob Gardner, who has been a strong advocate for people with developmental disabilities and whose performance in the well will not be missed. Well, okay, maybe missed. Representative Jean Labuda, who's been an outspoken advocate on juvenile justice issues and a strong voice for the people of Denver. Former Speaker and Representative Frank McNulty, who has been a tough act to follow and is one of the strongest advocates for this institution. Representative Sherilyn Peniston, a steadfast friend to education, especially early childhood and gifted and talented programs. Representative Jerry Sonnenberg, a champion for our farmers and ranchers across this state. Representative Amy Stevens, who's a vocal advocate on healthcare issues and has took the political courage to work across the aisle to create the Colorado Healthcare Exchange. and Spencer Swan, Representative Spencer Swan, who's had a laser-like focus on the national, state, local, and any other debt you can find. Please join me in thanking them for their dedicated service to the people and the state of Colorado. Earlier, I mentioned my sleep deprivation. The cause of mine is, I think, somewhere. She's just over there. Now that the adoption proceedings are final, it's my honor to formally introduce my daughter, Lila. And her other father is with us today, Greg Wirch. I'm so lucky to have him in my life. Greg and I were among the thousands of Colorado couples who entered into the civil union after the new law passed last year. Love you, honey. I know several of us yesterday went to former Representative, former Senator Ken Gordon's memorial service. And during that service, Rabbi Foster talked about the sacrifice we make as public officials, but he also talked about the sacrifice our families make. And an opening day when we have so much families with us, please join me in thanking all of our families for allowing us to do this and their support and love. And I would be remiss if I did not introduce my twin sister, Nicole, who has been my biggest supporter from day one, literally. She's somewhere around here. There she is. And let me take a moment to recognize the Arapahoe High School community, the students, educators, first responders, and families involved in the terrible day have shown unbelievable strength and courage. I especially want to recognize the family of Claire Davis, who are in our thoughts and prayers. As Colorado emerges from the Great Recession, we are well positioned to prosper in the years ahead. We've seen unemployment begin to recede. People are seeking new job opportunities, a range of fields. Jobs with descriptions that didn't even exist just 10 years ago. Dynamic, talented people are flocking here from across the country. It's an exciting time to be a Coloradan. And yet challenges remain. Too many Coloradans still struggle to keep their families afloat. As Speaker, I will continue to do everything in my power to guide this chamber in a direction of putting people ahead of politics and building a brighter future for all of Colorado. Now is not the time to take a step backward, to relitigate the fights of the past, and to descend into Washington-style impasse and dysfunction. Now is the time to continue moving Colorado forward and to build for Colorado's future. We are committed to a legislative agenda that focuses on 3 goals: enhancing the economic security of all Coloradans, strengthening our education system to prepare our students and make college more affordable, and helping Coloradans recover from the floods and fires we suffered in 2013. When it rains in Colorado, it usually is 10 or 15 minutes until the sun breaks through again. But on September 9th, along the Northern Front Range, 10 or 15 minutes became all day. September 9th became September 10th, and still it rained. And it kept raining on the 11th and the 12th, and the 13th and 14th and 15th. The National Weather Service, which tries to avoid hype, called these storms biblical. When the sun finally did return a week after the rains began, Colorado was confronted with epic ruin. Numbers hardly express the full scope of the damage, yet numbers are startling. 10 people lost their lives in and because of the great floods of 2013. 485 miles of state roadways were closed. More than 100 bridges were damaged. 18,000 people were displaced from their homes. More than 17,000 structures were damaged or destroyed. The total economic damage from the floods were estimated as high as $2 billion. It was the costliest disaster in our state's history. Entire communities like Lyons and Estes Park were cut off from the rest of the state. Areas in and around Longmont, Fort Collins, Boulder, and Greeley suffered heavy damages. Our state agencies mobilized to rescue, stabilize, and rebuild. And those folks haven't stopped yet, because Colorado is a state full of good neighbors, of people willing to lend a hand. To date, more than 1,800 people have contributed to recovery efforts, including civil servants from the Colorado Office of Emergency Management, CDOT, FEMA, the Colorado, Kansas, Montana, and Utah National Guards, and dozens of county and municipal governments. Nearly 700 people are still on the job. More than 28,000 Coloradans and more than 50 national, state, and local volunteer organizations have contributed their own time and money to help those hurt by the floods. Just another example of Coloradans being good neighbors and standing stronger together. People like Pastor Dan Skates and the congregants of LifeBridge Christian Church in Longmont. Pastor Skates' church served as an evacuation shelter and a staging site during the first days of the flood. In the weeks after the disaster, the congregation shifted their focus to recovery, and to date have provided some 2,000 volunteer hours. Please welcome Pastor Skates and thank him and his congregation for their efforts. Pastor Skates. From Weld and Larimer counties, we're joined by leaders of the Community Foundation serving Greeley and Weld County, the United Way of Weld County, and the Northern Colorado chapter of the Red Cross. Please thank Judy Knapp, Janine Truswell, and Aaron Mounsey and their staffs and volunteers. Thank you. The rapid response has produced extraordinary results. Every one of the displaced families has moved into temporary housing or found a rental. Businesses throughout the flood zones are receiving assistance. Lyons and Estes Park are not only reachable again, but very much open for business. And all the state roadways closed by the floods have reopened. I confess that when Governor John Hickenlooper announced the December 1st road reopening date, I thought it was perhaps too bold. I should have known better than underestimating our governor and the capable the amazing workers at CDOT. The job was done on November 26th. Please join me in thanking the governor and welcoming 3 CDOT employees who spearheaded the road rebuilding process: Dan Marcucci, Ken Schaefer, and Robin Stoneman. And please thank Dale Rademacher, Longmont's Manager of Natural Resources, who is with us today representing all the local officials who work day and night to coordinate the disaster response. Okay. Thank you. And of course, we all owe a debt of gratitude to our first responders, who showed unbelievable poise and MacGyver-esque creativity and skill in responding to the disaster. On September 12th, Erin Brazel was driving across Longmont to pick up her young daughter when a wall of water engulfed her Nissan Altima. It lost power and began to fill with water. She called 911. When several rescuers, including Lieutenant Mike Becker and his crew from the Longmont Fire Department, were finally able to locate the car, it was barely visible, nearly submerged. Erin's breathing space had been reduced to a few inches at the roof of her car. 3 members of the Mountain View Fire Rescue Captain Chad Rademacher, Steve Knoll, and Sean Talman struggled through the rising water to reach her car. The responders had to pry off the windshield and lift Miss Brazel out of the car. And Mountain View Fire medic Jamie Wood, riding a personal watercraft, yes, that's right, a jet ski, took her to safety. Erin and her rescues are here with us today. Please join me in thanking all the first responders who showed such ingenuity and bravery during the storms. Without them, it's unimaginable how much worse it could have been. Thank you. Despite all the recovery work that's already happened, there's much still to do. And we must see it through to completion, because nothing less than the fullest possible recovery is acceptable to me, to the other 99 lawmakers in the General Assembly, to the people of the 24 impacted counties, and indeed to the entire state of Colorado. In the weeks after the floods, I worked with leadership from both parties and both chambers to establish the Flood Disaster Study Committee. We made this committee strictly bipartisan, 6 Democrats, 6 Republicans, with a co-chair from each party. The floodwaters didn't care about the party affiliation of the families whose house was destroyed, and neither do we. Working under tight deadlines, committee members traveled the impacted communities to hear firsthand from those who suffered the greatest loss on what they needed the most. I thank Representative Dave Young and Senator Scott Renfro, the co-chairs of the committee, and the other committee members for their efforts to help the state recover. Their bipartisan work will also help the people of Manitou Springs and Colorado Springs with the flood damage they suffered in August. I'm proud the bills considered by the Flood Committee will be the first measures I introduce this legislative session. Members, 3 months before we had the most damaging flood in our state's history, we had the most damaging wildfire in our state's history. 2 lives were lost in the Black Forest Fire, which raged from June 11th to June 20th. It destroyed or damaged 486 homes, a record setter for a Colorado wildfire. Once again, we saw a remarkable outpouring of assistance. More than 500 firefighters from Colorado and neighboring states responded to the blaze, and help poured out to assist the 40,000 people from 3 counties who fled the flames. Today, with the assistance of state, county, and local authorities, families are resettling and rebuilding where they can. Unfortunately, it's clear that we will face this kind of danger again and again. Members, Colorado is visited by devastating tornadoes, battering hailstorms, ferocious winds, and biblical floods. But make no mistake, wildfire is an ongoing and annual danger. Unlike what some are calling a 1,000-year flood, the Black Forest Fire broke a record that had only been set 1 year ago in the Waldo Canyon Fire. As our state population grows, it's inevitable that more people will live in areas prone to wildfire. Decades of fire suppression only mean that there's a lot more forest to burn. Toss in more than 1 million acres of beetle kill forest, and the situation grows more explosive with each passing year. We'll need to stand together to confront the annual danger posed by fire. We can do more to promote fire safety and responsible development. Our interim wildfire committee met again last year and crafted legislation to provide additional equipment and training to our dedicated firefighters and to establish the Wildfire Information Resource Center for homeowners and educators. Those are just 2 of the common sense proposals that the interim committee sent to us for consideration, and I thank them for the creativity and good work. Our ability to recover from shocks like floods and fires last year is due in part to the fiscally prudent budgets Democrats and Republicans have passed during the Great Recession. We not only boosted our emergency reserves while balancing our finances, we also created some room to make critical investments in important priorities, such as public education. Make no mistake, the work we do this year in the General Assembly cannot make up for the loss our schools have faced during the Great Recession. But with revenue continuing to recover, we can continue to crawl back. Our goal is to make our education system stronger, more accountable, and better for all Colorado students. And that means working together to target more resources where they're needed the most, in the classroom. Over the last several years, we've passed bipartisan landmark legislation to improve student performance, enhance accountability, and ensure that our students, regardless of circumstances, can become effective learners and competitive job seekers after they graduate. I'm glad to see bipartisan support for many of the provisions contained in last year's school finance measure. So I am hopeful that we can work together to find ways to implement various common sense enhancements to our schools. Measures like flexible student count dates, professional development for our teachers, and expanded programs for English language learners. But while some have argued that reform before resources, let me say this: reform will not work, and our schools will not get better if they are not adequately funded, period. It is a top priority for me and my caucus to provide an excellent education for every Coloradoan enrolled in a public school, and I hope every person in this chamber will join us in that endeavor. We'll also look to make substantial investments in our system of higher education and make sure the college degree is affordable to students coming out of high school. We'll consider proposals capping annual tuition increases at our public colleges and universities at 6%, and looking at a model of scholarships that ensure more students can access a college education without crippling debt. Colorado's economy ranks as one of the strongest in the nation. We are fourth in job creation. Our unemployment rate has dropped nearly a full percentage point since our opening day in 2013. And we are only one of a handful of states to surpass our pre-recession job numbers. Our focus on advanced industries, job training, and spending Colorado dollars on Colorado businesses and workers is bringing real results that will continue to pay off for years to come. Colorado is making progress, but an unemployment rate of 6.7% isn't good enough. We must not reduce our efforts to facilitate a broader, more sustainable recovery. We'll be looking ways to expand our economic recovery to help the middle class, like expanding the already popular Advanced Industries Grant Program to develop more exciting new technologies and companies in Colorado, creating more good-paying jobs that are less prone to the boom and bust roller coaster. Enhancing our skills training programs so that Colorado workforce matches up with the highly skilled jobs that our emerging economy is producing. And giving business owners a break on their business personal property tax. And while increasing opportunities remains of critical importance, so does protecting the newfound prosperity once it's achieved. Economic security, ensuring that Coloradans do not only have a shot at climbing the ladder, but have a foundation in place to stay on those higher rungs, is just as critical in fostering economic opportunity during a recovery. That means ensuring that a single mother without a high school diploma can access training she needs to land a new, good-paying job, and that she also has access to affordable child care for her daughter, and that her daughter later in life has a shot at graduating from college without a mountain of debt. That means we're creating opportunities not only to welcome more Colorado families to the middle class, but also giving them a secure foundation for continued economic growth. The vast majority of decisions we make as a legislature demonstrate shared values and mutual problem solving by Coloradans. We take a little from here and a little from there, and we implement something that's well suited for our state. 94% of the legislation that passed last year went to the governor's desk with bipartisan support. That type of collaborative policymaking is not the type of hyper-partisan rhetoric and high-octane fighting that makes the headlines, but it is the truth. I can cite one example after another from the work we've done over the past years to show that the pundits and partisans who say Colorado is a fractured state, split between left and right, rural and urban, are simply wrong. But legislative examples pale in comparison to the hard work of our state and local agencies and elected officials in the flood and fire-ravaged communities. And they don't speak to the generosity of spirit of Coloradans, regardless of political stripe and geography. It wasn't lost on me when a few counties were voting on whether to separate from Colorado, our state and local government and charitable organizations were performing one of our most daunting disaster cleanups in some of those same counties. Guess what? Politics didn't matter. What did matter was making sure that people were taken care of. We are in this thing together. It is our great challenge to build a better, stronger Colorado together. Whether it's recovering from disaster or making our education system better and more equitable or increasing economic security for all, we will stand stronger together. That's the Colorado way of building for the future. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, it's my honor to recognize Minority Leader Del Grosso for the purpose of addressing the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I was looking at you up there when you were reading your speech, and I was trying to think there's something about you that's just a little different this year.
Don't know what it could be.
But I'm not sure what that might be, but I guess we'll have to try to get used to that this year. And you're right, Mr. Speaker. When we talk about my predecessors have all only served 1 year in this capacity, and I look forward to continuing that tradition as well. Mr. Speaker, Madam Majority Leader, esteemed colleagues, honored guests, I would like to also welcome you to the second section of the 69th General Assembly. I would also like to start by congratulating our newest member, Casey Becker. I also look forward to working with you, and I sure hope you know what you got yourself into. I also look forward to working with everybody again and all the returning members, and I would also like to echo the Speaker's comments on all of you that are term limited, and also thank you for your service to the state of Colorado. I would also like to thank my family. I would like to thank my wife, Amber, who just 4 years ago was actually supportive of me when I came home and had this crazy idea of like, hey, I got this idea, I should run for the legislature. And she has been supportive of me ever since, and I appreciate that. She does a lot to help out our family and to run our business, and so without her, I would not be able to do what I do, and so thank you. I would also like to give a shout out to my 3 kids who are not here today because they're in school. I guess Wednesday's a school day now. So, Andera, Branson, and Breeley. And lastly, I would like to also recognize my parents who are in attendance here today as well, George and Kathy. I would also like to say a special thank you to all the spouses and all of the family members out there that you have to deal with all of the crazy long hours that we have to deal with in our crazy schedules. And so actually, it is the spouses and our significant others and those that are at home that actually make it possible for all of us to come here and be successful. So thank you to all of the spouses and significant others. Colleagues, this past year has definitely tested the resolve of Coloradoans. For the second year in a row, we experienced devastating wildfires that caused record damage and loss of life. And as the speaker said, less than 3 months later, we were faced with 4 days of record-breaking rain that led to the most damaging floods in our state's history, which resulted in more loss of life and total damage that may not be fully realized for years to come. These natural disasters and the recent tragedy at Arapahoe High School have forced Colorado to cope with unthinkable hardship this year. Yet through all of this tragedy, we were able to see the best in Colorado. We saw again first responders once again putting themselves in harm's way to save lives and minimize the damage that was caused. We saw a massive outpouring of fundraising and volunteer efforts to help those that were affected. In my hometown of Loveland, we saw churches as well open up as shelters for those evacuated, and individuals opening up their homes to people they did not even know that were in need of a place to stay. We saw businesses give selflessly in the form of food, service, and supplies. Teenagers were organizing themselves into groups and going out and removing mud and debris from affected homes and businesses. We saw the list of volunteers for the Disaster Relief Center reach in the hundreds before the center even opened. I'm just one of many legislators that had areas affected by tragedy this last year. And I know that these are just a few of the stories that we heard happening around our state. Although our resolve was tested, we were not broken. We will recover and be a stronger state as a result. Helping our friends and neighbors impacted by these tragedies will also be a top priority for Republicans this session, and I'm glad to hear that it will be for my colleagues across the aisle as well. Here at the Capitol, challenges of this magnitude undoubtedly shape how we approach our job as legislators. Yet, despite our best intentions to prevent these types of tragedies from happening again, we have to align our expectations with our abilities. There is no bill that we can pass that will prevent wildfires, floods, or an individual intent on doing harm. We cannot control tragedy, but we can control how we react to it. Rather than respond with ineffectual legislation, let's work together to help rebuild our communities and heal Colorado. To start, let's work to ensure that our municipalities have the funding and aid necessary to rebuild flood-damaged communities and work to continue to knock down barriers that will get in their way from being successful. Rather than imposing costly mandates, let's work together to help educate Coloradoans about the need for fire mitigation and continue to work with the U.S. Forest Service to reduce the wildfire risk on state and federal lands. We know we will face future challenges, but let's prepare to meet them by further increasing our statutory reserve and saving for the future. Coloradoans have shown that they can overcome extreme adversity. Let's follow their example and work together as legislators to meet the needs of Colorado. Over this last year, House Republicans continued to take time to meet with people throughout Colorado and learn the different issues that they are facing. We took the time to listen. On our annual statewide tour, we met with several small business owners, as well as some of the largest companies in Colorado. These people are the lifeblood of our economy. It is our business, if our business community is not thriving, we will not have a thriving economy. Members, as the speaker said, there is evidence that our economy is improving, but fully recovered, it has not. Yes, Colorado's unemployment rate is down, and that is encouraging. But what cannot be ignored, that there are many parts of Colorado that are still struggling today. Outside the Front Range, we have communities stricken with stagnant or, in many cases, declining economies. We saw this summer that over 300 jobs at the Oxbow coal mine in the North Fork Valley, so 300 people lost their jobs. This may not sound like a lot to you, but in these small communities, this is devastating. In just 4 years, Grand Junction has seen a 10% drop in their workforce. Nearly 8,600 people have left the region in search of a better economy. Several businesses in other rural areas of rural Colorado talked about declining sales in their distressed markets as well. But perhaps most alarming was a recent report by the National Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council. This report measures policies and costs impacting small business and entrepreneurship. Colorado in 1 year dropped from 9 to 14 on that index that rates policies supportive to small business. While some may tout that 14 is good news, I say we are moving the wrong way on the scale. I guarantee moving further back on this scale will not attract more businesses to Colorado. When meeting with the small business community, almost all of them said that, you know what, the number one thing that you could do to help us out is to leave us alone. New regulations. New regulations, even with the best of intentions, take an enormous amount of time and resources to navigate. Businesses do not need another competitor in the form of government getting in their way and erecting their barriers to success. Our 2014 jobs agenda was developed to give businesses more flexibility, reduce regulatory burdens, and boost local economies. In just 2 years, there have been more than 14,000 pages of new rules and regulations enacted on businesses in Colorado. While I, like every other business owner, try to stay compliant, it is sometimes difficult to stay current with the many changes. We hope Representative Zabel's bill this year requiring state agencies to issue warnings in lieu of fines for first-time violations will meet with as much support from my Democratic colleagues as it has from the business community. As any business owner knows, there are good times and there are bad times. It is in these good times that businesses reinvest in their business to build for the future. Our state should be no different. Revenues have improved, and now is the time to reinvest in Colorado. Colorado currently puts no general fund money into roads and bridges. This year, House Republicans will propose the Invest in Colorado Act. This will provide an investment of $100 million into our roads and bridges. The ability to move people, goods, and services across our state is vital. Having a strong infrastructure is key to improving the needs of Colorado's economy and builds on the needs for our future. We all love Colorado's environment, and we, along with our families, breathe the same air, drink the same water as all Coloradoans. But we realize that we must not hamstring our economic potential by implementing renewable energy standards that are not only unrealistic, but unnecessary. Senate Bill 252 from last session has not only put a financial strain on rural Colorado families, including our poorest counties, but an unnecessary burden on businesses struggling to survive in these economic distressed areas. The voice of rural Colorado is being heard loud and clear by House Republicans, and I hope my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will hear it as well. This session, Representatives Sain, Scott, and Conti will each introduce bills to either repeal Senate Bill 52 or at least change or reduce the renewable energy mandate on rural Colorado. Additional, Representative Humphrey will also have a bill to classify that all hydroelectric power produced in Colorado be counted as renewable energy to help reduce the effects of this mandate. Renewable energy can be something that we can work together to develop, but only if it's done in a way that is economically responsible for all of Colorado. In traveling around the state, we continue to see the invaluable asset our natural resources are to Colorado's economy. The oil and gas industry provides over $1.5 billion in public revenues to our state. and they employ over 100,000 Coloradoans. This industry is the lifeblood of many areas of our state. I speak for all Republicans when I say we understand our obligation to protect our natural resources and to protect our environment. But House Republicans will stand firm against any further warrantless attack on Colorado's oil and gas industry. Colorado cannot afford any further job loss due to legislation passed at this Capitol. But members, we cannot also have a conversation about improving jobs in the economy, but without also discussing education in our state as well. One of our greatest assets is our children. As a father of 3 school-age children, and in 5 months, another one or 5 weeks, sorry. 5 weeks, sorry. There'll be another one on the way. But I can say that I also want to see my children have the best education possible and have all the tools that they need to compete in their future. I know I'm not alone. I believe every parent and every grandparent in our state wants the same thing for their children or grandchildren. Many of the education reforms discussed last session were welcomed by House Republicans. But when you look at the state of our economy, conditioning these reforms on a $1 billion tax increase was bad policy. When you consider this bill passed with absolutely no Republican support, it's no wonder that Coloradoans defeated it by a 2-to-1 margin. The day after Amendment 66 lost at the polls, House Republicans didn't spike the football. House Republicans rolled out our education reform agenda that will continue to improve our schools, but will do so using existing resources. In this upcoming session, Representative Wilson will introduce legislation to provide more spending transparency in our schools. With the ever-increasing enrollments in our charter schools, Representative Szabo will introduce a bill that will ensure that all schools have the same opportunity to provide safe and equitable facilities to their students. Representative Murray will introduce a bill for a charter transportation grant program that will encourage districts and charters to work together in innovative ways. But we must also better serve our English language learner population, which is more than 110,000 in this state. Representative Navarro will once again introduce her English Language Proficiency Act to give English language learner students more time and resources to be successful. And it will also give their teachers more professional development and tools to provide meaningful education to these students. Members, this bill passed with over 60 votes in this House last year, and I expect that we'll get the same kind of bipartisanship again this year. There are over 850,000 children in our K-12 enrollment, and we have to recognize that not all children learn the same way. So we must continue to support all forms of education in our state. This session, let's pass education reform that will benefit all of our schools and keep Colorado's economy on recovery track. Members, citizen input should be integral in our efforts. It helps us better understand how our ideas will affect their lives. To help facilitate our ability to listen to constituents, Representative Scott has been working all summer long on a bill to establish remote testimony for all citizens in our state. What we do here must reflect the positions of all our constituents, and our best chance to do that is by listening to Colorado. One of the core responsibilities of government is to protect its citizens. But members, allowing citizens the right to protect themselves is equally important. Taking away tools from our citizens to protect themselves, especially when it does nothing to improve public safety, is wrong. Colleagues, policy disagreements are expected under this gold dome. But when legislation is rushed through with no bipartisan support and causes recalls and secession movements, this legislative body is failing Colorado. There are over 2 million people in Colorado that are represented by the Minority Caucus. Each of us represents nearly 80,000 men, women, and children. Last session, we shared long hours of debate on several controversial bills. And with rare exception, most amendments offered by the Minority Caucus were voted down. Over and over again, we were reminded that we did not have the votes. We know we are in the minority, but we represent over 2 million people who have the right to be represented here. There are issues that we will fundamentally disagree on, but rather than let partisanship impede progress, let's cooperate. Let's have healthy debates and arrive at decisions that are best for all of the citizens of this state. We are willing to work together and begin today to be optimistic that we can cooperate. I hope my colleagues across the aisle share these feelings and welcome our contribution the same as we welcome yours. Once again, we find ourselves back here under the Gold Dome, facing remarkable opportunity. I personally saw opportunity in Colorado, and I used hard work and determination to make my entrepreneurial dreams a reality. Yet, I am no different than thousands of others who have come to Colorado in pursuit of their own American dream. While I hope opportunity remains abundant in Colorado, I believe we must remember our scope as legislators. For our role is not to control the industries that drive our state, but to enable an environment that helps drive them further. Our strength is not in the ability to make rules, but to remove barriers of success. And finally, our privilege is not the ability to speak to all citizens, but the chance to listen to everything that is Colorado. Thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader, for those words. Madam Majority Leader?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the excellent remarks of the Speaker and the Minority Leader be printed in the House Journal.
If there is no objection, the remarks by the Speaker and the Minority Leader will be printed in the Journal. Introduction of bills.
House Bill 1001.
Already, sir.
It's a new microphone. House Bill 1001 by Representative Singer, also Senator Nicholson, concerning the creation of income tax credit for taxpayer that owes property tax on property that has been destroyed by a natural cause.
House Bill 1001, assigned to the Committee on Finance.
House Bill 1002 by Representative Young, also Senator Jones, concerning the establishment of a grant program under the Colorado Water Quality Control Act to repair water infrastructure impacted by a natural disaster in connection with making an appropriation.
House Bill 1002, assigned to the Committee on Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resources.
House Bill 1003 by Representatives Nordberg and Sane, also Senators Kafalas and Lundberg, concerning the exemption from state income tax of income that is earned by a non-resident individual working temporarily in the state to assist with disaster emergency relief activities.
House Bill 1003, assigned to the Committee on Finance.
House Bill 1004 by Representatives Foote and Humphrey, also Senators Nicholson and Lambert, concerning emergency management in connection with eliminating and reorganizing two entities within the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management in the Department of Public Safety and authorizing the Governor to provide individual assistance during disaster absent a presidential declaration of the same.
Very nice, Mr. Kohler. House Bill 1004, assigned to the Committee on Judiciary.
House Bill 1005 by Representative Sonnenberg and Young, also Senators Lundberg and Kafalas, concerning clarification of the requirements applicable to a change of point of water diversion.
House Bill 1005, assigned to the Committee on Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resources.
House Bill 1006 by Representative Singer, also Senator Lundberg, concerning the remittance of the marketing promotion tax collected by lodging establishments in a local marketing district.
House Bill 1006, assigned to the Committee on Finance.
House Bill 1007 by Representative Hamner, concerning the authority of county governments to limit certain forms of fire in connection with permitting county governments to prohibit agricultural burning during periods of high fire danger, to prohibit fireworks activity during the summer season.
House Bill 1007, assigned to the Committee on Local Government.
House Bill 1008 by Representative Hamner, concerning the authorization of the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority to make loans to private entities for purposes of forest health projects.
House Bill 1008, assigned to the Committee on Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resources.
House Bill 1009 by Representative Exum, also Senator Nicholson, concerning changing the wildfire mitigation income tax deduction to the wildfire mitigation income tax credit.
House Bill 1009, signed to the Committee on Finance.
House Bill 1010 by Representative Hamner, concerning corrections to statutory provisions relating to the prescribed burning program administered by the Division of Fire Prevention and Control in the Department of Public Safety.
House Bill 1010, assigned to the Committee on Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resources. Thank you, Mr. Kohler. Members, before we do announcements and introductions, I just want to remind members we will be convening tomorrow at 9:30 a.m., not 10, not 9, but 9:30. We will come do a little bit of work, and then we will break until about 10:45 for the joint session. We will have to clear the chamber after we break so that the State Patrol can do a security sweep. So just remember that. Any announcements or introductions? Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to remind members of the Health, Environment, and Insurance Committee that we do have breakfast tomorrow at 7:30 at Racine, so hope to see you all there.
Representative Labuda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, the Colorado Legislative Women's Caucus is very active again this year. All of you should have found on your desks this morning the invitation for tomorrow evening at the Colorado Judicial Center. We will hear Justice and poet Greg Holmes. I didn't know he was a poet. He will introduce the new Chief Justice, Nancy Rice. So I hope that all of us can go there. There is an RSVP number at the bottom of your invitation, or you can call my office and reserve there. I hope that all of you are able to attend. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I asked to be excused on Friday, January 10th. I've asked permission from the majority and the minority leader.
Representative Swan will be excused as requested.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I'd like to welcome several students that are here from Aurora Public Schools. Please join me in welcoming them.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and this will be your first notice for your first call for your donation to the stock show kids sale. Just a heads up, remember the stock show starts this weekend, goes for 16 glorious days. It's a trademark and a showcase for agriculture in Colorado. If you remember, we have supported the youth every year since I have been here in that sale, and I'll be coming to ask you for that again, so thank you. We have started already. Thank you.
Representative Court, I was just about to promise the first $20, but you beat me to it, so I'll get to you, Representative Sonnenberg, later some money. Representative Vigil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to remind the Capital Development Committee members that we will meet tomorrow morning at 7:30 in SCR 356. So it's bright and early. We start in our work. So that was imprinted in the calendar. So see you there tomorrow.
Madam Assistant Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just want to remind everybody, there's a reception tonight for it's the Blue Ribbon reception. And I don't want to be biased, but it's a really good one. So I just want to remind you all to go.
And bias there. It is the best one, yeah.
Okay. It is the best one. And they gave us a handy little stylus for our iPad. So that's kind of cool.
Any further announcements or introductions? Seeing none. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I move for the first time that the House stand in recess until 1 p.m. Members, there is no need to return to the chambers as the Speaker has announced. After introductions at that time, he will adjourn until 9:30 tomorrow morning. See you then.
Seeing no objection and the fact that my daughter stole my gavel, hold on. The House will stand in recess until 1 p.m. today. Members, we'll see you tomorrow at 9:30.